creating our for loop using our for keyword. And then the first thing you need to put inside of your parentheses here is your variable declaration, also known as your initialization. All this is a variable that we are going to be using inside of our loop. And the reason I am calling this variable I here is because this is the traditional way to do it, but you can call this variable whatever you like. Just make sure you use the correct variable name in your loop. Secondly, we want to add our semicolon, and then we want to actually specify our condition. So in this case, we want to loop through our entire array here. So what we want to do is use our variable I to actually loop through our array. So we're going to specify I and then less than our array 1 dot length. So array 1 dot length confuses a lot of people, especially beginners, because arrays are 0 index, meaning this is going to be 0 and this is going to be 1 when it comes to our index. But when you specify array 1 dot length, it actually counts starting at 1. So array 1 dot length is actually equal to 2. Then what we want to do is actually increment our value of I here. And you don't necessarily have to only increment it by 1 like I'm doing here using I++. You can increment it by 2, by 4, by whatever you guys need to increment it by. But in our case, we want to use each value from our array, so we only want to increment by 1. Now we're going to use our curly brackets here, and what I want to do is create a variable called text so you guys can really see what's going on here. So I'm going to specify a string, and then I'm going to say this loop has run, and I'm going to add a space, and then I'm going to concatenate using the plus sign. Then I'm going to specify I, but keep in mind I is equal to 0. So we don't want this to print out 0 to our console because that wouldn't make any sense. We want this to print out this loop has run 1 times, right? So what we need to do is actually add 1 here to our variable, and then we also need to put this in parentheses simply because we need this to run before it concatenates with our string here. So now what I'm going to do is concatenate another string at the end and simply say times. Then we're going to go ahead console.log this message out like so by console.logging our text here, and we're going to save that. And now you guys can see it's going to display this loop has run 1 times, this loop has run 2 times. So what this is doing essentially is it's going into our for loop and it's declaring I equal to 0, and then it's saying is 0 less than 2 because 1, 2 is equal to our array dot length. And then it's skipping our incrementing value here, and then it's saying this loop has run I plus 1 times. Our I value is 0, then it adds 1, and that's what you guys are seeing right here, and then we're logging it out. Then when we go back up again to run our loop for the second time, I is going to be incremented now because it is not incremented until the loop has run 1 time. So now I is equal to 1, and then it's going to say, okay, 1 is less than 2 because that's our array 1 dot length. Then it's going to run I plus 1, which in this case is going to be 1 plus 1. Then it's going to log it out. Then it's going to add 1 to 1, and then it's going to run our condition again, but 2 is not less than 2, so it's going to stop looping through. Now I want to show you guys how you can actually console.log out the value from the array here. So what we want to do is concatenate our array 1, and then we want to specify the index of our array that we want to print using our I value here. So keep in mind I is equal to 0, and the first index in our array is 0, so we don't need to add 1 here. We can simply leave it like this, and now you guys will be able to see that first loop, which is our first value, and second loop, which is our second value, is successfully displaying. Again, let us know if you have any comments. If it's a bit confusing, that's perfectly normal, so don't be discouraged. Just let us know if you have any questions. Click the card above to see what happens next.